God, what the fuck is this bitch?
Welcome to the Industrial Revolution, a time of invention, an era of equality, and an age of progress. Total Warhammer 3 has recently received a new faction, the Chaos Dwarfs, a race of industrialist gentlemen, raver techno-demons, and a work ethic rivaled only by a Croatian sweatshop. Because today we'll be uniting all dwarf kind, whether willing or not. Through the power of friendship, employee satisfaction, and 30,000 hobgoblins, we can selflessly spread the gift of employment. To start our campaign, we have Drazoath the Ashen, certified spell dude, and esteemed member of the Shadow Wizard Money Gang. Beginning our adventures of tyrannical desolation, we have three main goals. First, to become dwarves, the only dwarves, by confederating every dwarf faction on the map, from the neighboring Chaos Dwarf factions to the friendly lands of Thorgrim Grudgebearer. Goal number 2 is to survive a specific endgame crisis, and for goal number 3, I'll reveal that later. As a faction, the Chaos Dwarves are relatively complicated, with 5 different resources, multiple settlement types, and a political system resembling Washington, D.C. So for that reason, I'll explain each mechanic as we go on. Entering our first battle, Drazoath starts with several unique things. First, a really cool hat, symbolizing his undying commitment to the Riz. Then we have guns, cooler guns, and their targets, our own orc employees. Across the way are the most disgusting creatures you've ever seen, unionized orcs, making ludicrous demands like only being shot on Wednesdays, or food. Luckily, I am willing to negotiate. Chaos Dwarves have an army ability for artillery barrages, alongside ranged units equipped with actual laser rifles and other units who casually carry 12-gauge shotguns. After giving the strikers a very real chance to surrender, we'd won the very first battle of the campaign, and we'd only lost 6 people. Because the Chaos Dwarves are such caring creatures, we absolutely love creating jobs, increasing our labor count and fueling our industry, the crux of the Chaos Dwarf economy. The simple explanation is that laborers mine raw materials become armaments, and armaments increase unit capacity, so we can train more dwarf and mechanical units. Going to our recruitment, we could only field a max of 2 dwarf warriors, but using armaments to increase the capacity, now we can field up to 3. Although labor troops are always uncapped, because it's not a casualty if it's not a person. Moving into our first settlement battle, we now possessed a real front line of heavily armored dwarf warriors. We still put the goblins in front. It's so brave of them to volunteer. After successfully brokering peace, we could claim the settlement. Here, Chaos Dwarves can establish cities as either outposts or factories. Outposts are where laborers dig up raw materials, whereas factories convert those into armaments. Because raw materials are used to upgrade our buildings, we establish the city as an outpost, building mines for our workers. Filling Drazoath's army with the pride of our nation, we researched labor quotas and Stockholm Syndrome. Now that's the kind of company loyalty we reward. By marching over to Darkhold, we secured the last settlement of the province, flourishing the local job market and meeting our very first dwarf faction, Clan Helheim. And as you can see, they absolutely love us. Our faction also has military convoys, allowing us to send caravans to trade resources. Here we can exchange money, materials, and armaments, plus collect unique artifacts from each trade location. Returning to our settlements, we'd run into a slight problem, a labor shortage. Each turn we experience some slight employee turnover, usually just laborers finding better opportunities. Because the north was occupied by a much stronger Skaven faction, we need to recruit more workers in the south. Now I know this might say raiding stance, but that's just corporate jargon for going on LinkedIn. To fix the turnover problem, we built guard towers, keeping our employees safe from the outside world. While our recruiters acquired the finest elven talent firearms could scare, we'd also unlock the Tower of Zar. Here we can occupy seats for faction-wide bonuses at the cost of conclave influence, something we passively get from settlements and events. The thing is, every other Chaos Dwarf faction is also competing for the seats, and more seats allows us to progress up the tower for increasingly powerful bonuses. Things like summoning the techno gods, small nuclear bombs, and entirely free armies of hobgoblin IRS agents. At the very top are 3 final seats to commence a hostile takeover of almost every other Chaos Dwarf faction, so we need to get there before everyone else. For right now, we just unlocked a seat for some material embezzlement and returned to fixing our economy. With dwindling labor, our efficiency was only 69%, and the elves were starting to wonder why their population was mysteriously vanishing. Adding on to our misery was everyone's favorite neighbor, Tretch Craventail, declaring war, and Grimgor voicing his slight concerns with our business model. But at least we're not at war with Imric. All we've done so far is make jobs. I mean, come on, Imric, think of the economy. For that reason, we recruited a second army of elite dwarf warriors, who happen to be green and not have weapons or armor. Although the real saving grace was Tretch attacking my caravan, filled with Zeech soul grinders, blunderbusses, and infernal guard. But while Tretch is incompetent, Imric is just as incompetent, trying to siege our capital from Drazoath. Even with his powerful dragon persona, in the grand game of rock, paper, scissors, the winner is usually Gun. My master engineer stood in place shooting the dragon for 5 minutes, then escaping with the grace of a legless penguin. The rest of the battle was fairly normal, with goblins bravely fighting the urge to run away, shotgun blasts, decapitating elves, and the sexiest bombing I have ever seen. After we let the remaining enemies run away in peace, we still had the issue of 2 Skaven 20 stacks sieging our adjacent settlement. The Skaven armies were mostly Skaven slaves. How they could use such a barbaric institution, I will never understand. As the front of laborers broke, I decided that winning was impossible, but kiting for 22 minutes while abusing a single unit of hobgoblins to exclusively target surrendering soldiers, I will gladly do. 286 kills, well earned. A little trick you can do when desperate is to kill your own leader. That way you can recruit a fresh one with full health immediately, reinforcing the army without ending the turn and allowing the Skaven to be employed. Given their cities were undefended, we upheld the burden of enlightenment, claiming our first factory city. These turned raw materials into armaments and money, forming the backbone of our military economy. Filling in the inevitable gaps of our production is where the convoy system comes in, letting us trade for anything we're missing. The downside is that on occasion, they get robbed, or they would if they didn't have garrisons. Ogres may be scary, but nothing is more frightening than a flying robo-cow. After defending the caravan, we also occupied the Skaven capital as a tower settlement, which is unlike either a factory or outpost. Towers produce conclave influence and can only be settled in provincial capitals. The downside is that neither factories nor towers use labor, so all of our 2024 laborers were in one province, leading to some minor issues like a full-scale revolution. To fix the issue, I built another mine, then sat down with our employees to just talk. And if this might seem like an OSHA violation now, don't worry, it only gets worse from here. Over the next dozen turns, we raided Imric with 2,000 unpaid interns, captured Tretch's last settlement, and ran into our very best friends. At the start of this campaign, I mentioned that we had 3 goals. First, to unite all dwarven factions. Second, to survive a specific endgame crisis. And third, a special mission I didn't share, which is making Thorgrim a little angry. As our third goal, I am going to get my relations as low as physically possible, and later in the game, it will be a thing of beauty. But right now, we have a minor issue. Is it overkill to use heavy artillery on Skaven slaves? Maybe. Did that stop me from winning the battle? Well, almost. Following Tretch's Gallipoli, he was intercepted by a different army in range of our garrison, allowing us to recruit a single laborer. Incompetent, cowardly, lazy, terrible leader? Congratulations, you are now in charge of human resources. Tretch's attack did expose a general weakness in our armies, with our flimsy front line and lack of mobility. To compensate, I recruited more blunderbusses, gave Drazoath a new mount, and used the Hellforge for the first time.
He's hacking, bro.
Pag download mo kasi, hindi mo pa talaga madadownload yan. May kailangan ka pa dito, ano eh. Execute the download.
What do we have here, man? What kind of hacks you got? What you